I'm Jarrad Brown, Australian expat financial planner based here in Singapore. Welcome to my video series where we tackle the tough personal finance questions asked by Australian expats. Today I want to share with you a very relevant topic, and that's ESG investing. Now, for anyone who's not already aware, ESG is environment, sustainability and governance, and it's a style of investing that is becoming incredibly popular. The term originated back in 2005, but we've really seen amazing growth over the last 5 years. In fact, Morningstar's research back in July of last year found that we've reached a point where we have a little over $1 trillion invested in some form of ESG style investing. So today in this video, what I'd like to share with you is exactly what ESG investing is, how you can go about it, and some potential investments that you may want to look at, and how it actually works. So hopefully this will shed some light on what ESG investing is and how you might want to consider it for yourself. Now, ESG investing is actually a relatively simple concept. It's simply a matter of considering how the environmental, sustainability and governance practices of a certain company actually impact the investment decision. Now, this can be quite a widespread and wide-reaching field. It could be down to the workforce or production practices of a certain company. It could be their pollution or carbon neutral stance, what practices they have in place. It could be down to do they use child labour or not. It's a very wide-reaching field and it's continuing to grow. And based on all of the pressure on companies all over the world these days to publish how they're actually achieving these measures, it's becoming much easier for investors and advisors alike to actually identify these company practices. Now let's get into how it's actually carried out. ESG investing is typically carried out in one of two ways, or in some cases a combination of both. The first is what is referred to as negative screening. Now, as you might have guessed, this is basically a process of removing those companies that have a negative or a very low ESG score. Think sectors like tobacco, gambling, alcohol, pornography. A lot of these sectors are going to be avoided in any ESG fund or ESG investment strategy. The second, as you may have guessed, is called positive screening. Now, this is typically a far more active process because we're constantly reviewing the ESG scores, the ESG practices of the companies within this particular investment style. So here we're going to focus on companies that have very high ESG scores, adopting sound carbon neutral environmental practices, sustainability practices. They may be in fields such as renewable energy, new technologies, more innovative healthcare. There are a number of sectors that are performing exceptionally well in this space and have very high ESG scores. So that's how ESG investing is carried out. Let's get into some of the options that you might want to consider and how you can have ESG style investments within your own portfolio. Now, there are many options to get exposure to ESG style investments. And we've got all of the usual options from managed funds to ETFs to direct equities. But before I go into a few of the options, I do just want to highlight that this is for general entertainment and general information purposes only. Before you put a dime of your own money into anything, as always, reach out, seek personal, professional advice before you put your own money at risk. But I do just want to give you a bit of a starting point and some general ideas to at least give you somewhere to start in conducting your own research. Now, in terms of managed funds, there are a whole range of options. To give you a couple, we've got the likes of the Australian Ethical Diversified Shares Fund, we've got the Alphinity Sustainable Fund. There are many to look at, and we're seeing more and more funds created every week as this space receives more and more attention and more demand from retail investors. We've then got exchange traded funds or ETFs, which I'm personally a big fan of. Some of your options there are the likes of the iShares Global Clean Energy, the BetaShares Global and Australian Sustainability Leaders, and many, many others. And again, we're seeing more and more ETFs that have a huge focus on ESG, sustainable sectors, renewable energy, solar, healthcare innovation popping up every single week. And we expect that this growth is going to continue, again driven by demand from investors. You've then also got direct equities. Now this is typically a more risky bet, so again, make sure you seek professional advice. But when you're investing in one equity or one stock, one company, there is obviously more exposure to that single company rather than investing through a fund or through an ETF. So again, make sure you seek professional advice. There are a range of different investment options for most investor profiles, but again, just make sure that it's aligned with your own risk profile. The final question to address today, of course, is does ESG investing actually improve performance? Now, this is a tough one to answer with complete certainty. We're seeing a lot more funds pop up again, as I said, every week. So because of those new entrants, it's quite tough to truly compare apples and apples. But what we do know is this. Typically companies with higher ESG scores have better staff morale, less impact on the environment, are going to receive lesser fines from regulators. So you may assume that it will lead to greater operational efficiency. Does that mean higher share prices, stronger growth? Again, future data will be able to answer that one, but certainly a space worth watching. I hope that shed some light on what ESG investing is, where you can start doing some research, and how it all actually works. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have anything to add, or you have any questions that we haven't yet covered, fire them through. We'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can even turn them into a future video. Thank you again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time.